Hello everyone, my name is Muir and we've got something new for you today. However, before we get into the video, I'd like to take a moment to tell you that nearly 70% of people who watch our videos are not subscribed. If you're not subscribed, you could do me a huge favor by liking the video, commenting below, subscribing to the channel, and ringing that bell. It really helps with the channel and lets me know that you're liking what I'm making. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the video.
So I was just thinking, maybe I can go look at skill points and we can go through this really fast. So, let's just go through everything so that you guys can see all of these, because I bet you're just dying to see what they are. We have helmsmanship. To my knowledge... Okay, so the elite has changed a little bit, I think. Yeah, you get a... Yeah, you get a bonus, you get a flat bonus to top speed, and then your... Any flux so long as you're not generating flux. Okay, so yeah, that is pretty much, you're always faster. Combat endurance. Okay, we have 60 seconds peak operating time. Okay, readiness degradation burns out more slowly, and extra combat readiness. When below 25%, hull repairs at 0.5% per second. So that one's good if, say, you have a huge capital ship and it regularly gets kicked down pretty low. You can keep pulling your hull back, or 50% of maximum hull. Whichever's higher. Oh. The other way this can be useful is if you have a ship that's made of paper, because then you get the most out of that 2,000 points. So that is one thing. Okay, next we have impact mitigation. 25% armor damage taken. Okay, that's nice. Minus 30% weapon and engine damage taken, and it gives you it lets you use heavy armor. Then we have 50% maneuverability for capital ships and cruisers. So that's really useful there, because one of the main problems with capital ships is that you turn really slowly. Yeah, you turn so slowly that they're almost useless in some cases. So, that could be useful. Damage control. Okay, so less hull damage taken, so if you mixed this with that, yeah, and you made that elite, that could be useful. Fewer crew lost due to hull damage, and faster in-combat repairs on weapons and engines. At most, once every 2 seconds, a single hit hull damage above 500 points has a portion above 500 reduced by 60%. So if you get hit by something nasty, that can be reduced. So, but it's at most every 2 seconds, so if you're flying a frigate, that could be useful, because frigates don't have a whole lot of health. We have field modulation. Let's see, yeah, that's elite. So field modulation, minus 15% damage taken by shields, minus 25% flux generated by active phase cloak, and then we have stabilized shields. Elite gives us 15% flux dissipation while shields are active, which is really useful, and then minus 50% phase cloak cooldown. So you may not know what that is. When you come out of phase, when you bring your phase ship back into normal space, there's a cooldown where you can't go back into phase. We can't go back in the phase space. That's the time where the phase ship is the most vulnerable. Now, if you're playing a ship that just pops out, dumps all its damage all at once, like antimatter blasters, and then goes back in the phase space as soon as it can, or as soon as it's safe, being able to just pop out, do damage, pop back in, well, yeah, pop into space, do a bunch of damage, pop out of space, and run away is really useful. So, that is there. And we have hardened shields. Over here we have 50% damage to fighters, 50% damage to missiles. It gives you integrated point defense AI, which is really useful. We have extends the range of point defense weapons by 200. So, I think they buffed this. I think it was 100 before. So, this one's really powerful. If we go with the Mora again, and we start using that, we'll probably make our big machine gun Mora again, and use this. Because that works great when we're flying it, but not necessarily great when an AI is flying it. Target analysis. So, extra damage to destroyers, extra damage to cruisers, and extra damage to capital ships. And it only applies to our ship. We have 100% damage to weapons and engines. Basically makes us stupidly dangerous. Ballistic mastery, 10% extra damage dealt by ballistic weapons, 10% ballistic weapon range, and we make it elite, ballistic projectile speed. We have the integrated targeting unit, which is fine, and then we have ballistic rangefinder, which is basically like those something. Basically, it just increases our ballistic range by about 100 or 200. It's basically the same thing we would put on our phase lances all the time. Over here we have this. Okay, extra charges and regeneration, extra system range, if it's something that has a range. Then we have plus 30% peak operating time, overload duration, and chance of malfunctions when low combat readiness reduced by 50%. So this one's really useful too. Okay, what about this? Missile specialization. Another thing, if you play the missile cruiser, this is just overpowered. You just double the amount of missiles you have. And then its special, I think, is still that it refills all your missiles once per battle. So you have 4 times as many missiles as you would normally without using the special. So, 100% missile ammo capacity, 50% missile hit points so they get shot down less, expanded missile racks, ECCM package that increases the speed of missiles and guidance, and it reduces the enemy electronic warfare. Now, here's the thing. I think missiles need to be way more dangerous to make the electronic warfare aspect of it more useful. I think they need to be more dangerous for that to really matter all that much. Because I've used missiles, and I think Raider Fen, when you guys eventually see that, that's on the previous version. It's a 0.95a. And yeah, it seemed nice, but I didn't feel like I needed like the ECCM package. Okay, so fire rate of missiles increased. Increase the fire rate of missile weapons by 50%, and then extra damage dealt by missiles. So again, that would be useful. This would be something that would be great to have in Elite if you're playing a missile frigate. Okay, let's go here to leadership. Okay, 5% weapon damage for combat ships, a maximum of 5%, and it can only be applied to 240 or less combat ships. So that's nice. Right now we have 8. Okay, so we have advanced turret gyros, then we have effectiveness of ground operations such as raids, and marine casualties suffered during ground operations. So this one right off the bat is useful to pretty much raiding and fighting and everything. So it's one of those fantastic things if you're going to be going out there and fighting the enemy. After that, we have coordinated maneuvers. This one is 5% nav rating of fleet for deployed frigates, 3% for destroyers, and 1% for larger hulls. Okay, and 50% to command point recovery for deployed frigates, and 25% for destroyers. So this is also really useful. So what you can do here is you can take, basically with this, you can make all your frigates super speedy if you do certain things to them. So it's up to a maximum of 20% extra. So let's just look at that. So if we were to deploy 4 frigates, we'd be at max. If we were to deploy 3 of them, we'd be at 18%. With destroyers, we'd need to deploy 7 of them. That would get us to 21%, but max at 20. And for larger hulls, cruisers and battleships, I think, we'd have to deploy 20 of them, which would be unrealistic. So what this is saying is, you want to use fewer ships, but you want to use stronger ships with a mix of weaker ships, or I should say destroyers. And you want to use a mix of destroyers, probably cruisers or like a cruiser or a battleship, and the frigates to get your speed up. So that's what that is. And the nav relay increases that even more, I believe. Okay, so Wolfpack Tactics. All frigates and destroyers with officers, including flagship. So plus 20% damage to ships larger than a frigate, plus 10% damage to ships and cruisers if destroyer. So destroyers naturally are going to have more damage per second than frigates, so this makes sense. We have plus 50% peak operating time of frigate, plus 25% of destroyer. So you may not know this, but frigates have a just normally lesser peak operating time. So each ship class, so you got frigate, destroyer, cruiser, and then battleship. Each one of those, each one of the larger ships lasts in combat for a longer period of time until they run out of their peak operating time and start to degrade. And then I think they degrade slower. So what this means is, if you have a bunch of frigates, you need to go out there and kill the enemy ASAP, or at least do enough damage to where you can run away, so that you can then do all that damage, run away, repair, come back and finish them off, or just kill them right from the start. So that extra damage is helping you. What the trend seems to be is that there are lots of things in the game that buff you at being a frigate fleet. So I'd assume that would be a lot of phase ships, or a lot of Tempests, because Tempests are really powerful right now. That being able to not amplify your phase lances by 50 or 100%, whatever it was, that isn't that big of a deal when now you can turn your Annihilator drones into free Atropos missiles, free Atropos torpedoes that will basically just go do a ton of damage and shut down the enemy's weapons if they're overloaded. So you now have... The Tempests are more powerful, I think, right now than they were last time. So you can kill all of the support craft and then send your Annihilator drones in to just blast the enemy ships. So that's fantastic. Okay, so crew training. Plus 15% maximum combat readiness for combat ships. So that's all ships, all combat ships. That's great. So this one doesn't feel like it's useless. Carrier group, plus 50% faster fighter replacement time. So this is just absolutely amazing. All ships with fighter bays and grants increased effect to ships with officers and including the flagship. Effect increased by 1.5 times, so it's basically 75%. It's to a maximum of 75%. For ships with officers including the flagship. What this would mean is if you were to fly 8 Tempests, each Tempest has a fighter bay on it. So you'd make maximum use of this with 8 fighter bays on those Tempests. We have fighter uplink. All fighters grants increased effect to ships with officers, including flagship. So plus minus 50% crew lost due to fighter losses in combat. Plus 20% top speed. Plus 50% target leading accuracy. And it's to a max of 8 fighter bays. Get recovery shuttles. Okay, so over here we have officer training. Plus 1 maximum to the maximum level of your officers under your command. Plus 1 of the maximum number of elite skills, so they can only have 1 elite skill, if I recall correctly, so this can get them to 7 with 2 elite skills. Then over here we have maximum number of officers you're able to command, so we can have 2 more. So instead of... So I think we can have 8 officers. They might have decreased it, but I think we had 8. This would make it 10. If you wanted to, you get it to 11. Best of the best. Able to build 1 more permanent hull mod into ships. Deployment point of bonus from objectives is at least 10% of the battle size, even if holding no objectives. So gain non-elite helmsman damage control and combat endurance for all ships without officers. Deployment point cost reduced by 20% or 10 points, whichever is less. Then the fleet 100% faster command point recovery unless command was transferred to a ship originally without an officer. Then we have navigation. this one is pretty much the same as it was last time. So movement penalty is reduced. I think it might have been 50% before, so it's 30% now. Maximum burn go up, and increases the burn bonus of sustained burn by 1. That's good. This one decreases the detect of that range by 25%. Our sensor range goes up by 25%, and +3 to burn level at which the fleet is considered to be moving slowly. Basically, what that is going to be is when you go silent, it's really good. There's a difference between running silent and, say, moving slowly. But if you're running silent, you are considered to be moving slowly, I think. I see you, little fish. Gives us higher resolution detectors and the neutrino detector ability. After that, we have gunnery implants. Okay, so plus 100% target leading accuracy for auto-firing weapons, plus 15% ballistic and energy weapon range, and minus 25% weapon recoil. Then we have that ECM. So total ECM rating, losing sides weapon range is reduced by the difference. So basically, this is just extra range for you, and I think there are. I think you can get your hands on some. You can get your hands on some things that increase that range further, that can make that ECM go higher than just 10%. Okay, so we have Energy Weapon Mastery. This is up to 30% extra damage at close range based on the firing ship's flux level. So yeah, you just need to be close, and you can do extra damage if you're close up. So this is just a no-brainer for like antimatter blasters and phase lances, because you're typically within 600 range. So, a free 30% extra damage. Yeah, and it does minus 10% of flux generated by energy weapons. It's pretty good. We have Electronic Warfare. This is every deployed combat ship grants -1% grants plus 1% ECM rating to the fleet. That's great. You get the ECM package, which increases that even more. Maybe up to a maximum 10%, I'm not sure. But that means you could have one ship be your ECM ship, and then you don't have to worry about it. So the ship loadout. Okay, so maximum of flux capacitors and vents. So that goes up. Now those aren't applied to every ship. That just means you can buy 5 more. Then we have all combat ships, including carriers and militarized civilian ships, which is plus 10% flux dissipation for all ships, and plus 10% flux capacity. So that's applied automatically. You can get resistant flux capacitor conduits. Over here we have phase coil tuning. So plus 180 seconds of peak operating time for combat phase ships, plus 50% top speed and acceleration for combat phase ships, and plus 100% sensor strength to combat phase ships. Maximum 40 or less, which is nice. Adaptive phase coils and phase anchor. So those are both amazing. So phase anchor gives you the ability for one of your phase ships to just peace out the moment they take damage that would kill them. So they just leave. That only can happen once per battle. Increased flux dissipation and weapon recharge while phased. Basically with this, your phase ships can go into phase space, recharge everything really fast, come out of phase space, shoot, go back in, recharge everything super fast, come out, shoot. So it's just that buff on top of being a phase ship and being in P-space. Adaptive phase coils. So, as I think I showed with the Afflictor, your speed goes down. This increases your max speed to, I think, from, what is it, like 50% or 30%? Up to 75%. So basically, phase anchor and adaptive phase coils are going to be more or less mandatory for your phase ships. Which means now your phase ships have a direct nerf as to what they can do if you want them to be able to get out of danger quickly. On the bright side, if you have an antimatter blaster, you only need like one of them, and then you can just go in and out really fast and do that damage. Okay, cybernetic augmentation. Plus to the number of elite skills for officers under your command. Okay, so basically with this you can have many more skills be elite. So with this one you can get an extra elite, right? Yeah. So you can get up to 2 elite skills, and this that makes it 4 elite skills. So you can have those super officers if you want them. Neural link. This allows you to switch between 2 ships, and both ships gain all of your combat bonuses, which is just really nice. Okay, next up we have this. So with this, you can also connect to automated ships. So there is an incentive in a way to just dump a lot of points into this, so you can get both of these if you wanted to fly around in an automated ship. So it enables recovery of some automated ships, such as derelict drones. Automated ships can be captained by AI cores. Plus 10% combat readiness, offset built-in 100% penalty. So one of the things about this is that when you put in better AI cores, there's a penalty. So for this one, if we look up there, we see that with a multiplier for installed cores. So if a ship is worth, say, 10 deployment points and you have an alpha core in it, now it's worth 40, which is a bit problematic because you have somewhat limited. You have a very limited amount of deployment points. You can basically AI ships. The more of them you have, the lower their combat readiness is from the start. So you want to keep that as low as possible. There was in the last patch, you could have a Radiant and you could put a bunch of good stuff on it, and it would basically just kill an entire fleet by itself. So they're trying to counter that. So now, however, one of the main complaints with AI ships is that you couldn't fly them. So that gives you the ability to fly them. Alright, bulk transport. This one's fantastic. It's the same as it was last time. So, amazing. Alright, so, it's coffee, if you're wondering. Plus 50% resources, not rare items, obtained from abandoned stations. So basically, if you want more salvage, this is what you take. And this one, field repairs. Okay, so your ships repair faster. And at the end of battle, 25% hull and armor is just repaired flat out. So recovered ships start with 30 to 40% hull integrity instead of like 0 or 1. And their combat readiness is higher too. Ordnance expertise. Plus 2 flux dissipation per ordnance point spent on weapons. So, that's not much, but you're also going to be spending a decent amount on your weapons. So, being able to cut that down is going to be useful. Then we have Elite is plus 20%, plus 20 flux capacity per ordnance point spent on weapons. You know, this might be something where if you take this, some of your ships instantly become hyper viable, like your Fire Forever ships. So let's see. Polarized armor. Maximum damage reduction by armor increased from 85% to 90%. This doesn't seem like much, but when you're getting shot for like 1,000 damage by a weapon, obviously, that 5% can be that 5% adds up. It might be another shot or two from the enemy. Up to plus 100% damage reduction calculation only. And then EMP damage reduced by up to 50%. Yeah, so basically with this one, your armor effectively takes half the damage it would normally take based on your hard flux level. So you'd want, I guess for the maximum bonus, you'd want to have an unending barrage type ship where you just fire forever. And then you take far less damage. And then the Elite is extra plus dissipation while venting. Ships without a shield or phase cloak are treated as always having 50% hard flux. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, so containment procedures. This allows you to take less crew damage, to lose less crew, lose fewer crew from hull damage. Reduces fuel consumption by 50% or 25 units, whichever is lower. Your fleet has a base fuel consumption of 1. Reduced by 50% or 5 units. 0.5 units. 25% fuel salvaged. And then emergency burn no longer reduces combat readiness, just costs you fuel. We have makeshift equipment. Reduces monthly supply consumption for ship maintenance by 50% or 100 units, whichever is lower. Your fleet requires the base consumption of 8 supplies per month for maintenance, which is reduced by 50% or 4 units. Then we need fewer units, fewer resources to survey planets. This is really nice. Industrial planning. So our governed colony, all industries supply 1 more unit of all the commodities they produce, plus 50% maximum value of custom ships and weapon production per month. That one's useful. Okay, and this one, hull restoration. All of your ships are almost always recoverable if lost in combat. Ships lost in combat have a 75% chance, or 60 if 60 deployment points or higher, or 90 if 5 deployment points or lower. Chance to avoid demods. Chance to remove 1 demod per month for a randomly selected ship in your fleet, and a chance to quickly remove 1 demod from newly acquired ship. Higher for ships with more demods. So that just means what that means is that it's probably going to be per demod that it rolls, and when it removes one of them, it stops rolling. And then 5% chance, 5% maximum combat readiness per S mod built into the ship. So basically, I like that. So S mod, I believe those are the built-in mods that you put in. You have to spend story points on them, but they also don't cost you anything, which is fantastic. Then over here, we have derelict operations. Deployment point cost of ships reduced by 6% per demod. Demod, and then dehull deployment cost reduction also applies to maintenance cost. So basically, if you want a lot of really jacked up ships, this is what you want to use. If you want to use a lot of really jacked up ships, then you want to use derelict operations. But okay, that's everything. So let's just think about a build here. So let's say we want to look at having like 10 Tempests, and that's our fleet. That's our wolf pack. So we would go over here and we would go for probably tactical drills. We would also go for this so we all move faster. We'd get this one as well. We wouldn't worry about that because the enemy shouldn't live that long. We would get both of these as well. We'd have to have that. No, we'd have to have this one. Then for sure, we wouldn't need either of these. Though we probably would take this one so we could build more good stuff into the Tempests themselves. Now after that, we would most likely look for all combat ships, ship loadouts. We might go with this one, as well as this one, so we could get those more elite skills, those extra elite skills. We wouldn't use either of these. We would most likely go with something like this and try to build in lots of S mods, but we want to look at each level. So we'd probably take both of these potentially, and we might take this one as well. Yeah, we might use that one so we can have better ships. And then for these, most of those don't affect, none of these affect the fleet, so we would probably take absolutely nothing in combat and let our officers do all the hard work. So we would do that and just annihilate everything. So this one affects all ships. So we might go with this one as well, just so we can... Oh, that's just for piloted ship only. Over here, fleets. and fleets. So these two could be useful. But yeah, we'd probably want our Tempest to be as close to 100% and easy to fly as possible for our officers. And if we lose them, so what? We can just make a new one, or we can just recover it, and the demods will get removed over time. So that could be super useful to us. But alright, we're gonna keep going on our sneaky breaky thing here. We're gonna get this, then we're going to grab that, because we don't have to wrap around as far as I understand. So that should work for us. And yeah, we'll go from there. We'll probably grab this so that we can be a bit faster, a bit better. Yeah, we'll see what we can do.